Good morning. Start your day informed and ahead. Today is Friday, the 19th of June. I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro.
And I'm Cheska Litoncala. We are bringing you the perfect mix of the headlines you need and the conversations that shape your day.
From the news desk to the digital space, we have got you covered. I'm Pauline Verzosa, and welcome to Morning Matters.
Now it's Friday, but let's begin with the first day of the pre-trial conference in the impeachment case against Vice President Sara Duterte. It saw early exchanges between the House prosecution panel and the defense team. The defense downplayed the arguments, saying such discussions are normal in pre-trial proceedings. Among the issues taken up were proposed conditions for the trial proper. Both camps have until Monday to submit their comments, and the prosecution, however, called out the Vice President's absence despite the presence of her defense team. Duterte's camp said she will attend the impeachment trial if needed. The prosecution also again criticized the defense pre-trial brief, saying it focused more on questioning the process than answering the allegations. The defense insisted it came prepared and said the records will speak for themselves. Meanwhile, Senate President Win Gatchalian said the Senate has yet to discuss who will preside over the impeachment trial. Under the rules, the Senate President will preside unless the Senate decides otherwise. The pre-trial conference will continue on Monday. Well, the House prosecution panel said tunog lata daw yung defense ng or yung evidence ng defense, and well, it is expected naman talaga na magkakaroon niya ng mga disagreement pagdating sa mga ganitong usapin. But for context, ano ba yung importance ng pre-trial, diba? In pre-trial kasi this is where they lay down the evidence, they discuss and of course yung mga to stipulate the facts, and they also dictate yung magiging sequence of the evidence. So yesterday, what they did is marking of the evidence, which is also important because this is where they tag and label the evidence to make sure na they can easily, submit it to the trial itself. So on Monday naman, what they're going to do is stipulation of facts. And then after nun, may magkakaroon ng consolidation of the evidence and then resolution. Kasi, di ba, if you will, yung mga papanood natin sa mga legal, di ba, ganun, lagi may pre-trial. But most importantly nga, lagi natin tinatanong sa kanila kasi in pre-trial, dito sila magpe-present ng evidence and hopefully during the trial, wala nang mga surprises evidence. But sabi nga nila, they will allow it, or it happens kasi naman talaga na minsan along the trial, may mga lalabas sa mga evidence, they will allow it na masama dun sa kanilang discussion sa trial kung i-allow naman yun ng presiding officer.
So yesterday, they finished marking evidence nga for 2 of the 4 impeachment articles. So yung grave threats and bribery. So yung dalawa, misuse of confidential funds and unexplained wealth, wala pa. And then, if people are wondering, it was close to the media and the public. Diba? But Attorney Michael Poa said naman, there was no tension. Expected naman yung discussions. So, abangan natin kung ano mangyayari sa Monday din.
He said it was nothing out of the ordinary for the part of the defense. Pero the prosecution is saying that there were tensions, there were misunderstandings, of course, during this pre-trial conference. Because for their side, Rene Co, one of the spokespersons of the House prosecution panel, said they were looking for independent, affirmative defenses to the allegations, but they didn't get anything. Congressman Adyong even said that the pre-trial brief of the defense was thick in paper, makapal siya, but it wasn't substantive. The answers they were looking for weren't there. They didn't answer, for example, who Mayor Grace Piatos is, and that needs to be done already here kasi, diba, in the pre-trial conference, para pagdating nila sa trial, they can prepare already their arguments, both sides can prepare their questions for the witnesses, and sabi rin ng prosecution na yung witness list ng defense almost just mirrored what they had. So parang they came unprepared. But of course, that's for the side of the prosecution. The defense here, malay natin, baka yun yung strategy nila, diba, to appear like they're unprepared or that they don't really have the answers for now. But come the trial, baka may
mga pasabog
din sila.
We'll see yung kanilang performance. But this is actually the first time na nagkaharap ang prosecution at saka defense. Ano? At of course, ang laging sinasabi nga ng prosecution, especially nung reply nila nung una, diba, na parang the defense is actually asking the impeachment trial court to dismiss the case when in fact, it is not the job of the impeachment trial court to dismiss. Its job is to try the case. So, bakit daw kasama yun dun sa defense ng defense? So, we'll see what's going to happen because yun nga, there will be marking of stipulation of facts sa Monday and then yung resolution gagawin nila. And come July 6, diba, is going to be the impeachment trial and we have yet to finalize kung sino talaga ang uupo na presiding officer. Maganda yung sinabi ni Senator Drilon yesterday dun sa interview regarding Senator Jesus Cordero that he is burdened with the fact na DDS supporter siya at that time. So I think this is going to be his chance if he is going to be the presiding officer to redeem himself and place himself in another part of history.
To prove that he could be objective in this impeachment trial. We will talk more about that with our guest later on in the program. Attorney Jen Reyes will be joining us here in the studio. But in other news, Senator Ping Lacson claimed that at least 700 million pesos in taxpayers' money was wasted during Senator Alan Peter Cayetano's 28-day stint as Senate President. Lacson said the period was marked by controversies that disrupted the chamber's work. Among the incidents he cited were a shooting incident inside the Senate, the escape of Senator Bato de la Rosa while under the chamber's protective custody, and a boycott of sessions by the Cayetano bloc. He also pointed to what he described as failed destabilization efforts and unauthorized committee hearings. Still, Lacson expressed hope that the leadership of Senate President Sherwin Gatchalian would help restore stability and productivity in the chamber. Cayetano, however, rejected the criticism, accusing Lacson of being divisive. He said the figure was being used to distort the narrative around his brief tenure as Senate President. So yesterday, we heard Senate President Sherwin Gatchalian saying, tapos na ang Senate flicks. Pero parang may continuing season pa, ano? But kidding aside, we have Senator Ping Lacson here pointing out that under the leadership of Senator Cayetano as Senate President, they spent 700 million pesos. I wonder where all that money went, because there were a lot of days na walang session and they weren't able to accomplish a lot of things during this period. And as Senator Lacson mentioned on X, it was a waste of taxpayers' money because the output was just chaos, the gunfire, the many incidents. And, there's a lot of frustration here on the part of Senator Lacson because nga hindi pa rin na-address, di ba, until now, itong mga incident na nangyari. The past month, yung pag-escape ni Senator Bato de la Rosa, wala pang closure talaga dyan. So, I understand that there is frustration on his part, but sinagot na nga rin yan ni Senator Cayetano, and he even hit back at them saying, bakit ba kayo nagagalit pag nagfe-Facebook ako? Nagfe-Facebook rin, ang hilig nyo rin naman mag-Facebook. So,
but also, where did those numbers come from, diba? So that apparently was based on the calculations of Senate President Gatchalian because he used to chair the Finance Committee. And then galing din yun based on Senate's expenses under the 2026 General Appropriations Act. So ano yun, yung salaries, allowances, the maintenance and other operational costs. So marami talagang gastos every single day. Pero yung response din ni Senator Alan Peter Cayetano was also, kahit sinong SP, 25 million pa rin yung gastos sa Senado.
Yeah, tama kayo doon, because yan nga yung operational expenses ng Senado. And even, I think, if I'm not mistaken, lumabas sa Facebook Live nga si Senator Alan Peter Cayetano and said na parang, sige, dahil mahilig mag-divide, si Senator Ping Lacson, divide natin. Diba, 700 million supposedly yung nagastos nila for 28 days and divided to 25 days, you'll get 700 million. Tapos parang, ako naman, for me, parang kahit ano pang competition mo, kahit ano pang mangyari dyan, nasayang pa rin yung pera na yon na dapat sana nagastos in the proper way, because there were a lot of, committee hearings, 'di ba, including yung mga allegedly na alam mo nun, had no senator at that time na pumunta sila doon na hindi naman dapat. So nasayang talaga yung pera. So the point here is tama siya doon kahit whoever the senator the Senator President is, ganun yung gastos. But the point is he was that Senate President at that time na nasayang. 'Di ba? Because isipin mo yung ginawa nila sa session, yung special session, 'di ba? Yung mga nagpabalik-balik ng mga athlete, yung mga generals na dapat makakuha ng kanilang mga promotion, etc. Sayang din ng waste of time and money. So, siyempre, hindi mo rin masisi yung mga tao na nagagalit din sila on social media because these are our money, di ba? These are taxes, di ba? Binabayaran natin itong taxes na to. And we expect our government official, our senators, most especially, di ba, to do their job. So ngayon, move forward. Sabi ni Senator Win Gatchalian, hopefully stop na. Pero sinabi ni Senator Drilon yesterday doon sa usapan natin, di ba, na baka daw talaga the Senate will continue to struggle nga on these things unless talaga ma-resolve nila yung mga issues.
All right. Latest government data shows that child stunting in the Philippines rose to 25% in 2025, marking the first increase in a decade. The figure means that about 1 in 4 Filipino children under 5 is affected by chronic malnutrition, resulting in impaired growth and development. The 2025 rate is 1.7 percentage points higher than in 2023 and now falls within the World Health Organization's classification of a high public health concern. The Second Congressional Commission on Education, or EDCOM-2, warned that the increase could worsen the country's learning crisis. It said children who are undernourished before school age are more likely to struggle with literacy, numeracy, and cognitive development once they enter the classroom. EDCOM-2 said the reversal should serve as a wake-up call, stressing that learning gaps cannot be fixed in later grades if nutrition is neglected in early childhood. Okay, so these numbers were from the DOST's Food and Nutrition Research Institute 2025 updating survey. So this was from April 23, 2025 to March 31, 2026. As a mother, I'm sure, diba?
You know, Cheska, kasi I did a few stories, documentaries about malnutrition, and talagang sobrang nakakagulat at nakakaawa na makita since 2019, ang figure pa rin na sinasabi ng UNICEF ay 95 children, Filipino children die every day from malnutrition. And dahil nga sa malnutrition, nagkakaroon ng stunting. And this goes beyond physical appearance. It also affects the brain development. That is why it is important na talaga na nai-implement ang maayos yung first 1,000 days act natin dito, wherein it spans from the child conception until second birthday ng child ay mapangalagaan sila dun sa kalusugan nila.
Ayun na nga. And as mentioned by EDCOM2 co-chair Roman Romulo, if we are serious about solving the learning crisis, we must start by solving the nutrition crisis.
Because that's very important also in education, right? People think you just need to fix the curriculum, you need to fix the education system, but part of that education system is also making sure that the children are healthy so that they can cope with the lessons. Because, di ba, kung hindi ka naman din makapag-isip ng maayos in class, you're hungry, or you're not feeling well, you're not going to be able to cope with the lessons.
All right, here's some good news for Filipino fans. Alex Ayala has pulled off a stunning win at the Berlin Open.
Oh, congratulations to Alex.
I mean, we are just so amazed every single time.
Filipina pride talaga
Grabe. But also, for context on how big of a deal this is, Rybakina is the reigning Australian Open champion. And the last time they faced off, Rybakina defeated Ayala at the Italian Open. So, bumawi na. That was clay though. But bumawi si Alex and yung si Svitolina naman, she's the world number 6, another big match. So, let's go, Alex.
Okay, number 8 or...
I think she's number... Depende sa...
six
Nasa
already.
I think Yeah, Alex is at 35 now.
But nonetheless, it's going to be a big match for her. But we have high expectations for Alex. She's been playing really, really well so far this year. And we can't wait to see Alex, of course, on the court. She always displays Filipino pride whenever she plays internationally. So that's going to be very exciting.
Yeah, we're proud of you, Alex.
Don't go away. Morning Matters will be back after a short break.
Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. Davao City Representative Paulo Duterte has fired back at Interior Secretary John Vic Remulla over his sabog remark. This after Remulla said Duterte may have been high on drugs when he claimed that an International Criminal Court arrest order had been issued against Senator Bongo. In response, Duterte told Remulla to look in the mirror before calling someone high or stoned. Duterte also challenged Remulla to undergo a hair follicle drug test along with his boss and his family to end all rumors. He also said Remulla may have been referring to a different kind of high, such as being high on power, corruption, and arrogance. Meanwhile, House Prosecution spokesperson Representative Rene Co said the defense team of Vice President Sara Duterte failed to present concrete evidence in its pre-trial brief. In an interview with The Big Story, Co said the defense did not adequately address the allegations and relied mainly on general denials. She added that the Duterte camp appears to be leaning on technicalities in an attempt to delay the impeachment process. Co said the prosecution is still awaiting any indication that the vice president is willing to personally respond to the charges.
At tingin natin, tunog lata kapag ginalaw-galaw mo yung pre-trial brief, no? And if tunog lata na siya, what more the trial proper? Dahil nakita natin at the very core of the pre-trial brief submitted by the defense team of VP Sara Duterte, wala pong affirmative defenses, wala pong independent arguments other than to simply rebut through a general denial yung mga allegations in the articles of impeachment. And again, no, yung pag-summon ng issues on technicalities that were already ruled upon in previous House Committee on Justice hearings and pleadings, pero rehashed again here at the pre-trial brief and in the conference. So that's frustrating because we want answers. The people have been clamoring for answers for years. And in this supposedly first step before the trial hearings, hindi pa rin po natin nakuha yun. I think it's still a matter of showing up for the people, especially since she made previous commitments to be ready and willing to face these charges at the proper court. Ito na po ang proper court. Bakit po hindi niya pinapakita yung readiness and willingness na yon to the people as she mentioned. In fact, sa tenor ng answers and the pre-trial conference, it doesn't seem like she's most ready or most willing. Because at the answer, she prayed for a dismissal, which is not found in the Constitution or in the Senate rules when you talk about impeachment.
And in other news, Philippine Coast Guard spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea, Rear Admiral J. Tariela, said the biggest challenge in the West Philippine Sea is the battle of narratives rather than Chinese vessels or structures in the area. Tariela told One News's political beat that he was dismayed over claims by pro-China influencers that incidents involving Filipino fishermen were allegedly scripted. He also said the Duterte administration instilled fear about the West Philippine Sea, which led many Filipinos to accept misleading narratives. Tariela also added that the Philippine Coast Guard is prepared to present evidence it has gathered should the government decide to pursue a second arbitration case against China.
Alam mo, para sa akin, sir, ang pinaka nalulungkot ako na mga insidente sa West Philippine Sea, kahit pa sabihin nating trolls yung nagko-comment or mga pro-China influencer, yung ang mga isda winater ganon or ang mga isda hinarang, whether in Bajo de Masinloc or in Kalayaan Island Group, tapos ang sasabihin ng mga pro-China influencer, ano yan scripted, ibinuyo natin ang mga isdang Pilipino for them to go there. Parang hindi ko magets yan Pag tinitigan mo yung video, pinanood mo, na yung mga isdang Pilipino, halos makipagpatayan na para hindi sila mapaalis doon. Tapos magko-comment ka ng ganyan sa social media, yung ibang pro-China influencer ipopost pa sa social media nila. Parang yan yung nakakagalit, na nakakalungkot, na parang gusto mong tanungin, Pilipino ka ba talaga? Ang pinakamahirap na laban natin ngayon sa West Philippine Sea is not actually the multiple vessels na nasa West Philippine Sea. Not even the platform na dinala nila sa Bajo de Masinloc. Ang pinakamahirap na laban natin dito is the battle of narrative. Kasi sa barko, kahit pa sabihin mong gaano kadami yan, ang ating sandatahang lakas, ang ating Coast Guard, ang Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, despite of their limited number, maglalayag at maglalayag pa rin yan. But pagdating sa usapin ng naratibo or tamang informasyon, kahit alam natin na meron tayong tamang informasyon, may ingay pa rin ang mga pro-China trolls. And unfortunately, whether these are soulless trolls, paid trolls, or pro-China lang talaga, dahil napakinabangan nila sa kanilang political career, I don't know what motivated them. Ang nakakalungkot dito, yung parang tipong they don't want to hear reasons anymore. Na wala na yung logic. Na pati yung mga followers nila, mga sympathizers nila, at yung mga fanatics sa kanila, naniniwala na rin. So, ang pinakamahirap ngayon is the battle of narrative. The disinformation na nagiging dahilan para hindi tayo magkaisa bilang Pilipino.
The Philippines is losing around 50 billion pesos every year to illicit tobacco trade. And now, the government wants to go beyond raids and make sure that smugglers and sellers are held accountable. Mobile journalist Fatima Baduria tells us more in this report.
Illicit tobacco trade in the Philippines has led its revenue to leak billions every year. To combat illegal trade, the government says it aims to ramp up its offensive for raids to lead to convictions and accountability. 50 billion pesos annually is lost to the Philippines from illegal tobacco trade, according to the Department of Agriculture during its third International Tobacco Summit in Pasig City. The livelihood of around 2.5 million legitimate Filipino farmers are directly hit as they face unfair competition due to the prevalence of smuggling. But as the significant numbers hit public funds, it also deprives the public of the revenues needed for health and infrastructure projects.
But behind these figures, yung real family, yung real community, natatamaan po sa mga illicit drug trade, itong illegal supply chain deprives government all revenues, all resources, of course, for intervention for our public services.
According to Francis Manuel, representative of kapisanan ng mga sari-sari stores sa Pilipinas, some retailers find it easier to sell illegal cigarettes, much cheaper than legal ones.
Kita nila yung opportunity na makakabenta sila dahil sa mahal na ng mga legal brand. Kaya itong mga illicit tobacco, sobrang baba yung price. Isang kahon nun, mga 60 pesos or 80 pesos. Compare mo sa pinakamababang legal brand na 120.
As they strengthen efforts to disrupt the illegal tobacco trade, the DILG and PNP has conducted nearly 9,000 operations nationwide this year. According to DILG Secretary John Vic Remulla, they have successfully confiscated 8 billion pesos worth of illegal tobacco.
Before, solving a problem in the country meant dealing with the barrel of a gun. But this entire operation that we've done in interdicting over 8 billion pesos worth of tobacco, I can proudly say we did not have to kill anyone.
This year's Tobacco Summit also urged all stakeholders to strengthen coordination for raids to lead to prosecution. DA says this will help make illicit tobacco trade a high-risk, low-reward endeavor, unattractive for smugglers and retailers alike. Kapatid Fatima Baduria, we are One News.
Now don't go away because Money Talks with Kathy Yang is up next to get you ahead of the markets. I'm Pauline Verzosa. Stay tuned to One News.
Welcome to Money Talks. I'm Kathy Yang, your intel on the Philippine markets and the economy. In the headlines, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas raises interest rates by 25 basis points, taking the key rate to 4.75% as it signaled further rate hikes.
Monetary tightening is still warranted. Today's policy action will help keep inflation expectations anchored and will mitigate the risk of second-round effects.
For analysis and more, we have TG Limcauco, President and CEO of the Bank of the Philippine Islands, and Elizabeth Lee, Chairperson of the Federation of Philippine Industries. Diesel prices can see a 7 to 9 peso rollback next week. This comes after the signing of an interim deal between the U.S. and Iran that will end over 3 months of conflict in the Middle East. And the International Monetary Fund says the Bangko Sentral should refine its roadmap for a wholesale central bank digital currency by setting clear policy goals and legal safeguards. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas has signaled that future rate hikes would likely to remain measured unless inflation pressures broaden further. This comes after it raised the benchmark interest rate for a second straight meeting. At its policy meeting Thursday, the Monetary Board hiked the target reverse repurchase rate by 25 basis points to 4.75%. Interest rates on the overnight deposit and lending facilities were also raised to 4.25% and 5.25% respectively. The latest move brings the central bank's cumulative rate hikes to 50 basis points since April, marking a sharp shift from its earlier easing cycle. The BSP also signaled a higher for longer rate environment as it works to bring inflation back to its tolerance level of 3%. Bangko Sentral Governor Eli Remolona Jr. says while inflation is its policy objective, Monetary Board members do assign some weight to supporting economic growth. Asked why the board opted for a 25 basis point hike instead of a larger 50 basis point move, Remolona had this to say.
Given the uncertainty, you might want a bigger hike because you want to prevent the anchoring of inflation. But if that's not a big issue, then you could go with what I call baby steps, so that if something new, unexpected happens, you can always adjust. We can always have an off-cycle meeting. We can do 50 basis points if necessary. The problem with big moves is it's not. It tends to disturb the markets if you reverse them. So it's better to do small moves in the same direction than a big move up and then a big move down. That's more disruptive to markets.
Meantime, the BSP chief criticized newly minted Federal Reserve Chair Kevin Warsh for stating that under his leadership, the Fed will no longer release forward guidance.
I don't agree with the way he said it. In our case, we have the policy rate, right? But a lot of the impact of monetary policy also depends on the forward guidance. We need forward guidance in order for monetary policy to have some effect, so that there's a transmission mechanism that's reasonably potent. The U.S. is the biggest economy in the world, so whatever they do will affect us. These days, I can't imagine a statement without some forward guidance.
How then does a higher for longer monetary policy path shape bank profits, credit quality, and risk? What do these all mean for borrowers, from large corporates to everyday consumers in the months ahead? With us for more, TG Limcauco, President and CEO of BPI. It's good having you back on, TG. Welcome to the program.
Morning, Kathy. Thank you.
All right, so with Gov Eli's higher for longer policy path before us, are you still seeing 2026 as a still fairly decent year, or are you now bracing for a sharper slowdown in both earnings and loan growth?
Well, we're clearly looking for a slowdown this year, not necessarily negative versus last year, but certainly less optimistic than what we had foreseen at the end of last year. With the war and now hopefully the end of the war, things might come back a little better, but we're still seeing maybe the BSP with another 3 to 4 hikes, which should mean that you'll see muted growth in bank lending, and you should see maybe because of a slower economy, you'll see some higher credit costs going forward versus last year, of course.
All right, so are you a lot less optimistic than when you first reported your first quarter earnings, 16.9 billion pesos in net income, and that came just days before the Bangko Sentral started raising rates?
Well, actually, when we reported the first quarter earnings, the war had already started, and we knew what was coming. So actually, with the war ended, and sort of a clear perception of what the BSP will be doing going forward, I'm a little more optimistic this year than I was in April, to be honest.
How so? With 3 or 4 rate
Well,
hikes coming forth?
Well, we're only seeing maybe 4 rate hikes this full year, whereas before we had seen maybe up to 6, right? That was the first thing. We're seeing fuel prices come off, and we're seeing global fuel prices now lower than $100. I think they're now like below 80, which will be good going forward for inflation, which will be good for consumer sentiment here, and which should lead to lower credit costs versus what we had thought would be needed back in April.
And
So
presumably
that
those
gives me a
4,
good pause.
all right,
Yeah,
4
go
rate
ahead.
hikes that you're expecting, it's 25 bips and not 50, and any of those rate hikes you're expecting?
Yeah. I mean, when we talk rate hikes, we talk in increments of 25. So we're looking at maybe 3 more this year, at worst 4 more. So we're looking at 5.5 to 5.75 by year end. And it all depends on how strong the effect of El Nino or what fertilizer prices will have done to food prices towards the second half of this year.
Which leads us now to your drivers, those sensitive to rates and those that are driven by volume growth and fees. Now that policy rates have moved higher again and that you're expecting at least 4 more hikes, how are the drivers evolving there for BPI?
Well, on the corporate side, what really drives loan growth is where the corporates see the economy going. They're not as sensitive to rates. Clearly, rates are what drives their cost, but their decisions to make investments and to borrow to fund those investments is really driven by their outlook. And as the outlook gets more positive, I think you'll see loan demand pick up, again, relative to what we had thought in April for the corporates. On the consumer side, the reality is consumer loans are not as sensitive to rate hikes because they are sort of fixed. For example, credit card rates are capped at 3% a month. Mortgage rates are less sensitive to policy rates of the BSP. And really what's driving the consumer business is the risk appetite of the banks and what we see as whether we tighten or loosen credit and the type of credit costs we have to apply to these loans given the outlook on the economy. But for us, mortgage continues to be fairly strong. Auto's a little weak. Credit card continues to be strong.
How so? How come auto loans seem to be weak when we've seen a lot of people shift to EVs, for instance, and presumably wanting to borrow money to purchase an EV?
Well, I think EVs are something that people are looking at, but by and large, because of fuel costs, and EVs, I think, still aren't the majority of the market, and people are a little bit concerned about the cost of fuel, at least back then, and also really consumer lending, particularly on things like auto, which are more or less discretionary. People need a little confidence in their outlook when they make that step to borrow.
Okay, on the assumptions that you've just made, a higher for longer interest rate scenario and inflation, how is that impacting your assumptions on margins, on pricing, and yes, overall risk appetite for the bank?
Well, the reality is for a bank, our margins expand when rates go up, when policy rates go up over the long term, particularly for a bank like BPI, where 70% of our loan book is corporate, and of that loan book, maybe half of it is tied to a floating rate environment, and therefore as rates go up, the margin should expand. The trick here is for us, for a bank, to be able to preserve that margin is to be very, I guess, smart and nimble in our funding. And for that reason, BPI, we're really not chasing deposit growth. We're being really conscious about our cost of funding. Today, our loan growth, our deposit growth is about 9%, which I think is just reasonable for us.
Any early signs that you're seeing on deterioration in credit quality? You said that you weren't seeing that yet, but what kind of signals would you be watching for from the consumer space, SMEs, or even specific corporate sectors?
Well, you would be looking at clearly what we call the flow rate, which is the amount of loans that flow from current to 30 days past due, 60 days past due, and 90 days past due. And I'm sure I'm sure that other banks and other financial institutions like BPI have been stepping up collection efforts to try to mitigate that. So, for example, for us, we've stepped up collection efforts, being more proactive, speaking to our cardholders, reminding them of their due dates, and we're seeing that flow rate actually slow down.
All right, talk to us about your digital resilience, because the past couple of days we've seen some disruption to BPI customers online. Is everything all right?
Everything's all right, Kathy, and thank you for bringing that. And first of all, I know you're one of our clients, and so I really apologize for the inconvenience that may have caused. But the reality is, it's a series of unfortunate events that just came one after the other. We had a network issue on Sunday, which we resolved, and then because we had updated the app to a new version that was very popular, we're preparing it for tokenization. The load on the back end was quite heavy given the outage on Sunday, and then it was payday. So we just got caught in the load, and we have addressed that, and hopefully everything is fine going forward. And again, apologize to all our customers, and I take it on myself. It's my responsibility. Mea culpa.
Well, the Bangko Sentral has initiated an inquiry and investigation into what happened. What's the update on that so far?
Rightly so. I mean, I think they're our regulator. They want to make sure that our BCP and our resilience is there. We've reported to them. They've asked us to give them a report as to what happened, and we're putting that together. We'll be as thorough and as complete and as honest with them to make sure that they understand the situation and to make sure that they realize that the bank is doing everything to make sure that it doesn't happen again.
Final point, TG, how do you plan to address the customer complaints and grievances?
Kathy, all we have to do is be honest and be upfront. And the reality is this was a digital issue. People did not lose access to their accounts. There were no errors in the balances. For me, when I look back to the experiences we had in 2023 or 2017, it was much more muted because people continued to have access to their accounts through the ATMs and through the branches. And kudos to my team and the branches who worked long hours to make sure that any person who needed access to their accounts or any queries were addressed at the branches. So, just be upfront, be honest, and keep your customers informed of what's going on, and things turn out to be all right.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the update and insights, TG. I much appreciate it. TG Limcauco, the president and CEO of BPI. Well, motorists may see a huge drop in pump prices next week following the interim peace deal between the U.S. and Iran. An industry source tells the Philippine Star that if the peace deal holds up, diesel may be cheaper by 7 to 9 pesos per liter and gasoline by 3 to 5 pesos. These figures are based on 3 days of trading at the Mean of Platts, Singapore. Adjustments will take effect on June 23, Tuesday. Traffic in the Strait of Hormuz, where 1/5 of the world's energy supplies pass, is slowly resuming. Marine traffic reports that at least 7 vessels traveled through the strait on Thursday. Analysts expect traffic to return to 50% of pre-war levels in a month. Progress comes as U.S. President Donald Trump and Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian sign a ceasefire agreement ahead of the expected ceremony in Switzerland on Friday. Vice President J.D. Vance says the 60-day period to negotiate a final deal has begun. He also rebukes Israel for being critical about the deal.
Donald J. Trump is the only head of state in the entire world who is sympathetic to the nation of Israel at this moment in time. And he happens to be the head of state of the world's superpower. If I was in the cabinet of the Israeli government, I might not be attacking the only powerful ally that I have anywhere left in the entire world.
You're watching Money Talks. Coming up, a conversation next with an industry leader who called for a calibrated response on monetary policy way back in March. Elizabeth Lee, chairwoman of the Philippine Federation Industries, joins us next. Welcome back to Money Talks. I'm Kathy Yang. A quick check on the Philippine peso and see how it's opened. It's opened weaker, 60.70 to the dollar. The peso weakened by 17.4 centavos Thursday to settle at 65.67 against the greenback. This comes as the Fed gave hawkish signals and as the Bangko Sentral held its own policy meeting. Traders see the dollar moving today between 60.40 and 60.80 to the dollar. The International Monetary Fund says the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas should further refine its roadmap for a wholesale central bank digital currency before moving to more advanced testing. In a report, the IMF said the central bank should first establish clear policy objectives, legal safeguards, and measures of success. It also urged the BSP to continue assessing whether a wholesale CBDC could help improve payment systems, particularly in the settlement of tokenized government bonds and cross-border transactions. The Bangko Sentral has been studying digital currency since 2020 and launched its wholesale CBDC initiative, Project Aguila, in 2022. However, the IMF warned that a wholesale CBDC should not be viewed as a cure-all and said other solutions should still be pursued alongside its development. The International Criminal Police Organization, or Interpol, has issued a red notice against MFT Group of Companies CEO Maria Francesca Tan, who is linked to being an alleged investment fraud scheme. As first reported by Philippine Star, the Securities and Exchange Commission requested the red notice to help bring Tan before Philippine courts. A red notice is a request to law enforcement agencies worldwide to locate and provisionally arrest a wanted individual pending extradition or other legal action. Tan is currently subject to an arrest warrant issued by a Taguig court for alleged violations of the Securities Regulation Code and the Cybercrime Prevention Act. The SEC also said in a court in Lipa City issued a separate warrant for syndicated estafa in March with no bail recommended. The Justice Department earlier indicted MFT Group, Foundry Ventures, and their officers over the alleged unauthorized solicitation of investments. In our continuing discussion on the impact of higher interest rates on Philippine businesses, joining us live from California, the chairperson of the Confederation of Philippine Industries, Elizabeth Lee. Welcome to the program. A very good evening, Beth.
Wonderful to be in your show. Thanks, Kathy.
And the BSP, as you know, has raised its key rate by 25 basis points, follow on from the first rate hike on April 23rd. What do you make of these back-to-back rate hikes and their impact on Philippine manufacturers?
Well, money got expensive pretty quickly, and calibrated in baby steps actually is the right approach. It's the right way, especially for manufacturers. Taking note that the first quarter GDP was only at 2.8%, and that this inflation is actually an imported inflation. It's supply side, not necessarily demand side. So having said that, the supply-driven inflation, it really is affecting manufacturers. Unfortunately, tightening credit doesn't really lower global oil prices. And for manufacturing, we actually lost a 4-month expansion streak that we had since December, where in April, the PMI index was at 48.3, which is a contraction for manufacturers. But thankfully, in May, we are now back on expansion territory at 50.8 in the index. But manufacturers are actually facing a double pressure because of the Middle East crisis, even though we now have this peace agreement. We still have high input costs, and now we have even tighter borrowing conditions.
Okay, so if you say that back-to-back interest rate hikes in a span of 2 months isn't calibrated, Beth, what is for local manufacturers?
Well, you know, the BSP is really stuck between a rock and a hard place, and there really isn't there's no free lunch for our manufacturers. And the supply side, you know, our input costs are actually higher. Down the line for inflation, that actually dampens the demand. So there is a margin squeeze in between. But but not all is actually in dire straits, because if we tease out the production volume for manufacturing for this year alone, in January it was up 1.2%, but significantly in April, the production volume actually went up by 12%, in spite of the Middle East conflict, in spite of the increase in rate. So there is some resilience there for manufacturing, but there is no two buts about it that input costs increased, demand actually softened, and borrowing rates are going to be increasing because of the rates also. So
All right, so
yeah,
given the
big hit.
challenges there, Beth, what sort of conversations now are you having with the local manufacturers and how to live that out? Higher for longer interest rates and the staples of higher input costs. I mean, it's already been there even before the Middle East crisis.
Yes, well, we know that this is going to be there's going to be a lag, as the BSP governor says, because it will take time to unwind. Manufacturing is like we're like a large aircraft carrier. We can't really turn on a dime. So there is going to be a lag. So, for example, for capital expenditures, which is these are decisions for the mid and the long term. So there's going to be some projects that are going to be delayed expectedly or maybe scaled back, but not totally canceled. So those are some of the effects. In terms of working capital, of course, if you're, for example, a manufacturer with 50 million working capital, a 50 basis point rise, adds 250,000 annually in interest alone. So that actually hits in that way. But manufacturers are actually know this, and we are continuing to tighten our belts. One of the things that we're looking at really is the unemployment, and that's what we do not want to increase. The underemployment. Manufacturing industry actually employs about 3.5 million jobs. And right now, underemployment is actually increased. So that's one of the things that we're kind of looking at right
So
now.
exactly how are you intending to stabilize, if you will, because underemployment already reached near a near 3-year high. And you just mentioned there that there are some scaling back and there are canceled projects. How many job losses are we talking about in this period?
Yeah, we can't say how many, but that really is the effect of the belt tightening, and manufacturers are actually trying our very best to actually keep our workers, because in manufacturing, our workers are actually they are actually technical workers, for example, in the assembly lines. So we've already put in a lot of equity and capital, if you will, in the HR and the training of our workers. So we want to keep our workers as much as possible. But for, let's say, manufacturers, maybe there would be some one of the key asks would be concessional rates, maybe for working capital with longer tenor. Those can actually help relieve some of the pressure for manufacturers so that we can actually sustain production and keep a lot of our workers actually intact.
Just a final point, Beth, what about passing on costs? How many of those manufacturers are already saying, I got to pass the cost on or else I'll have to lay off some jobs?
Yeah, that's actually a catch-22, if you will, because when we pass on the cost and increase the prices, that also softens the demand down the line. So it really is a balancing act for manufacturers to do a pass on cost from the back end all the way to the consumers. So that's sort of like a balancing act. The prices already have increased. I mean, that one you can't really do much about that. But in terms of like absorption, the manufacturers are actually trying to absorb as much as we can, but then that can't be sustained for the long term. So a lot of these things we need to do a lot of balancing acts. So increases in rates in baby steps, that really is the right approach to do this while we wait for the supply chain effects of the Middle East conflict unwind. And what's good is that production volume actually went up. So that is good. There's some resilience in the manufacturing industry. And PMI also is back in expansion. So that's also good for our factory workers.
That's the silver lining we're looking for, those production volumes, and we'll keep watch on it. Thank you so much, Beth, for your insights. Beth Lee of the Federation of Philippine Industries. And checking in on the markets overseas, South Korea's Kospi extends its record run at the onset of Friday's trading. It is up 2.7%, crossing the 9,000 mark for the first time. The Kospi is getting a boost from the stocks like Samsung and SK Hynix, which are trading at all-time highs. Japan's Nikkei 225 rises 0.8%. Australia's ASX 200 falls 1%. U.S. equities ended the trading week in the green yesterday as oil prices continued to fall following the signing of the U.S.-Iran interim peace deal. The Nasdaq surged nearly 2%, S&P climbed 1%, and the Dow gained 0.1%. U.S. markets are closed Friday in commemoration of the Juneteenth holiday. U.S. and Iran interim peace deal has injected much-needed positive sentiment into the local markets. The benchmark PSEI gained 38 points yesterday, or over 0.6%. The broader all-shares index climbed 0.33%, with the sectoral gauges a mixed bag. And even as global markets remain on edge, one of the country's biggest banks is going ahead with a major investment launch. BPI Wealth yesterday unveiled its peso-class funds, giving Filipino retail investors access to global equity markets without needing to convert their money to dollars. The offering covers two funds: the BPI World Technology Feeder Fund, which is heavily exposed to semiconductors and artificial intelligence, and the BPI Global Equity Fund of Funds, a diversified portfolio managed by global names like JP Morgan Asset Management and Wellington Management. Both funds can be accessed for as low as 1,000 pesos through the BPI app. BPI Wealth Chief Investment Officer Tono Shalcita says the timing is deliberate.
But with volatility comes opportunity. And so what we want to tell investors is that access is now available, and thus we can take advantage of this volatility. So for these funds, the peso share classes are available at just 1,000 pesos. So it's very easy for people to gain access.
Shalcita notes that currency movements will still affect returns, but frames that as an upside. BPI Wealth calls this unhedged, meaning they do not try to neutralize that currency effect. As for track record, the Global Equity Fund of Funds has returned over 26% over the past year, while the Tech Feeder Fund has returned over 55% in the same period.
With volatility comes opportunity, and we believe that the technology story is something that will play out over 10, 20 years, and so we definitely see value in it. Diversification really helps by stabilizing the portfolio. So volatility is actually diminished because you have a diversified portfolio, as opposed to a single security where volatility will be enhanced.
BPI Wealth says more dollar-denominated funds as part of a sustainable investing suite will be open to peso investors before the year is out. The bank has set its sights on growing its assets under management to 4 trillion pesos by 2030. And that is it for Money Talks. I'm Kathy Yang. Catch us again on Monday at 9 a.m. Have a great weekend ahead.
Good morning mga kapatid, you're watching Morning Matters. Now as we know, the pre-trial conference in the impeachment case against Vice President Sara Duterte has begun. On its first day, the two sides discussed ground rules and conditions for the trial proper. The House prosecution panel raised concerns over Duterte's absence, saying she has yet to personally face the proceedings. Her lawyers, however, said the Vice President remains in constant communication with the defense team and will appear when necessary. The prosecution also took issue with the defense's pre-trial brief, claiming it focused on procedural questions instead of the actual allegations. The defense maintained it is ready for trial and said the records will speak for themselves. Both camps have been given until Monday to submit their comments.
And at this point, we are joined by attorney Jennifer Reyes, a constitutional law book author and professor, to help us break down the legal and constitutional issues surrounding the impeachment pre-trial conference. Good morning, Attorney Jen. Welcome to Morning Matters.
Good morning, beautiful ladies, and good morning to your listeners and viewers.
It's so good
finally,
to finally
meet you in person.
Yes.
Because we've been talking to each other on Zoom.
Finally.
Well, we have a lot to discuss today, so let's begin with the pre-trial conference of the impeachment trial. We already saw both sides yesterday hashing out all these administrative matters, right? The evidence, the stipulation of facts. But let's look at the big picture first, Attorney. What is the importance of a pre-trial conference in an impeachment trial?
That is a very good question. The importance of a pre-trial conference, especially in an impeachment trial, is because during the pre-trial conference, this is the stage where both parties must submit to the impeachment court their lists of witnesses, their lists of object or documentary evidence, so as not to have, surprises during the trial proper. And that is for the efficiency and organization of the impeachment trial. That's why it is quite important. And of course, this affords due process not only to the defense, but of course, the House of Representatives prosecution panel has the right also to be given due process. That's why both parties must, lay their cards on the table and present or prefer their available evidence.
Right. But how important is the pre-trial brief of both the prosecution and the defense in shaping the direction of the trial?
Again, with respect to the pre-trial, it is utterly important since it simplifies the issues, right? In a pre-trial brief, both parties make admission as to the stipulation of facts. They agree on certain factual matters para maging mas mabilis sa impeachment trial, right? For example, the personal circumstances of the respondent or the accused rather, pwedeng i-admit na nila para hindi na yon maging issue. At makapag-focus ang impeachment court doon sa mga legal issues. With respect to what I stated a while ago as to the lists of witnesses, ayan, kailangan ilista mo na doon sa pre-trial brief kung sino-sino ang iyong magiging witnesses to prevent, undue or unfair surprise to the other party and of course to the court during the trial proper.
But I have a follow-up question, Attorney. So let's say, for example, during the trial proper itself, and then nagkaroon bigla ng mga evidence that they want to present, particularly in this impeachment trial, is that even allowed?
Well, as a general rule, that is not allowed because it will render the purpose of the pre-trial conference illusory or nugatory, right? So, to make it more efficient, to make it more fair, hindi pwedeng i-allow as a general rule ang mga biglaang witnesses, ang mga new evidence which were not marked even during the pre-trial conference. But of course, as to every general rule, there is an exception, right? The senator judges must, balance whether or not this new evidence, if ever, will truly, present sufficient arguments or will truly help them decide, adjust decision or resolve the said impeachment trial in a fair manner.
As you mentioned, Attorney, the purpose of that is really for efficiency, right? And para hindi magkagulatan pagdating ng trial mismo because, of course, both sides also have to prepare their questions for the witnesses and as well as their arguments. But going back to the pre-trial conference yesterday, the prosecution panel said that the defense didn't really prepare any independent, affirmative defenses. Sabi nga nila, tunog lata daw. And the prosecution here is saying that defense focused mostly on procedural matters, on the technicalities, but on the part of the defense, I mean, is that a valid strategy to focus first or to focus instead on technical matters?
Well, I will give them the benefit of the doubt, right? Maybe that is a strategy. Maybe they will just prefer their strong evidence during the trial, but it is better if they preferred already during the pre-trial conference. Para makita rin ng taong bayan yung ebidensya ni VP Duterte, right?
How come the defense before in the first reply nila of the case, they were asking for the impeachment court to dismiss the case, when in fact we all know that the sole obligation of the impeachment court is to try the case. So what kind of legal strategy is that?
Well, for lack of a better term, a desperate attempt to dismiss the impeachment trial. You are correct. Under the 1987 Constitution, it is explicit. The only duty of the Senate as an impeachment court is to try and decide the impeachment case. There is no option for a motion to dismiss. That is why kailangan litisin ito at magkaroon ng final decision, may it be for conviction or may it be for acquittal.
Well, as we know, Attorney, the defense has indeed questioned this before the Supreme Court, right? But here they are participating already in the impeachment process. We're at the pre-trial stage. So what does that say about their participation? Does that negate this petition they filed before the Supreme Court or sort of water down yung kanilang pinaglalaban because they're already here participating?
That can be used by the Supreme Court, right? In dismissing the said petition for certiorari and prohibition, which the defense filed before, right? The Supreme Court may say that it is already moot and academic because you are already actively participating. Hence, you are impliedly recognizing the jurisdiction of the impeachment court with respect to your client, VP Duterte. So that is an interesting observation.
Well, the House Prosecution Panel has been criticizing Vice President Sara Duterte for not attending the procedure. Even in yung clarificatory hearing ng Justice Committee, diba? At this point, is her presence required pa ba in this kind of stage?
Well, at this stage, although the rules do not require her to attend, right? But of course, she was the one who said that she wants a bloodbath, right? Before. I mean, even her supporters are confident that our VP Duterte will face the impeachment trial in the Senate because she is brave. She is not a coward. So at this stage, at the pre-trial conference, though it is not required, of course, it would be helpful for her reputation, right? Or her case if she will attend. But then again, it is not prohibited. Her counsels and representatives at this time may represent her or appear on her behalf. It's just that, in layman's term, harapin mo ang mga Pilipino, di ba? Ikaw ay accountable sa mga kababayan natin, hindi lamang naman dito sa mga senator judges.
But you know, this early, Attorney, we're already seeing tensions flare between both sides, right? Yesterday in the pre-trial conference, it was held behind closed doors, but there were reportedly tensions already between the defense and the prosecution. Is that normal, attorney, na magkakaroon na po ng mga disagreements at this stage pa lang of the impeachment process?
Yes, it is utterly normal. That is why mga kababayan natin, huwag kayong mag-away. Normal po yun sa hearings or proceedings. These lawyers from both sides, they will, of course, disagree on certain matters, but it's part of the legal process, right? It is utterly part of the legal process. Hindi talaga sila magkakasundo sa ilang issues, sa ilang stipulations, and that is part of the process. Kailangan talagang mangyari yun.
Well, attorney, I want to pick your brain on this because a lot of people are talking about the threshold on voting, diba, in the impeachment trial. And I remember some legal luminaries would say that there is such thing as justiciable reach. Diba, na, like for example, si Senator Jinggoy Estrada is in the institution, nakakulong siya. Pwede siyang i-count because he is within the justice system. Nakikita siya, he is reachable. But as for Senator Bato de la Rosa, since he is in hiding, pwede siyang i-out doon sa 24 senators na yon because di naman siya nakikita eh. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Actually, for me, the more prudent thing that the senators must do now is just to follow the 24 membership threshold. Because the Constitution is explicit. It must be 2/3 of all the members of Senate. However, I actually agree with some of the luminaries because under the Constitution, there are certain provisions wherein all the members of the Senate are also mandated to vote. And a scenario, for example, 9 senators are in jail.
Yan.
For example, 9 senators will intentionally boycott the impeachment trial. That would also be unfair if the threshold will still be 24. That is why it is an interesting take that maybe in the future, we must consider whether or not when the Constitution states all members of the Senate, does it mean literally all members of the Senate? Or all members of the Senate who can also function or who are actually present during the trial. Because otherwise, I do not think the framers of the Constitution envisioned this provision to be restrictive in a sense that it can even be weaponized, right? I mean, worst case scenario, what if in the future you want to impeach an impeachable official, but of course he or she has strong allies in the Senate. These members can just, abuse it by not attending or making flimsy excuses so as not to reach the 16-vote threshold for conviction. So that is an interesting observation, and I actually agree with that. But of course, for the time being, I believe it is more wise for the senator judges to just, follow it in its literal sense. Kasi kung hindi, baka lang mamaya, for conviction or for acquittal, mag-file pa ng petition sa Supreme Court para ipa-interpret sa Korte Suprema na naman kung ano ba ang ibig sabihin ng all members of the Senate. And it will only create political unrest again. Hindi na magkakaroon ng katapusan itong impeachment issue na ito. So that is my humble legal opinion regarding that matter.
So for you, attorney, it should still be based on the threshold of 16 out of the 24 senators. But how will that work, attorney? Given that Senator Jinggoy Estrada is already detained, sinabi naman ni Senator Ping Lacson that pwede nilang tignan na payagan siyang bumoto.
He can seek court.
Oo, can seek court permission. So, but is that allowed under the Constitution then for a senator who is already suspended? We should take note of that also, diba? Preventively suspended na siya for 90 days because of his graft case. But does that also include the suspension of his duties as a government official, as a public official?
With respect to that, there are internal rules. The Senate rules can fix that. If they will allow Senator Jinggoy, and in accordance with their rules, they will request the court for Senator Jinggoy Estrada, or even Bato for that matter, to attend the impeachment trial, then they can do that because the Constitution does not have any express provision, right, as to how they will attend. And of course, even if they are absent, Senator Jinggoy or Bato or more, the threshold must still be 60. It's just that if Jinggoy Estrada will be allowed, right, to attend the impeachment trial, either online, even Bato, either via Zoom, of course, we will not evade the perception of the public. Nagkakaroon kasi ng credibility crisis, right? Or questions on credibility, since you are an accused, but here you are acting as a judge for an impeachment trial. So the public perception will also be like that.
Okay, kasi I remember during the time of Senator Antonio Trillanes and Senator Laila de Lima at that time, they weren't allowed to, vote for they were allowed to, for amendments, etc. But to vote for bills, petitions, parang they weren't allowed. Even if si Senator Laila de Lima at that time sought court permission, pero hindi siya pinayagan, di ba? But right now, I also want to ask you also about the possibility of Senator Chis Escudero. He will be presiding daw as a presiding officer sa impeachment case. What are your thoughts on that, given that, I would always ask this to our guests, kasi nagkaroon siya ng parang, perception ng mga tao na about the fourth with, di ba? Yung fourth with na issue na yon. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, as a presiding officer, of course, legally, he is well equipped, right? He has adept knowledge about the law since he is a lawyer. Also, since last year, during the brief period that there was an impeachment, right, before the Senate, he was already the presiding officer, right? Or supposedly the presiding officer. So he already knows the rules, but actually, my opinion on this is maganda rin sana. Ako, abogado ko, pero para sa akin, maganda rin sana, interesting kung hindi abogado ang presiding officer. Why? Because, we will be reflected or mare-reflect kasi yung curiosity. Yung natural curiosity ng isang hindi abogado. Diba? Kasi if you're a lawyer, you already know if someone is lying. Sometimes. Sometimes, right? Or you already know, nababasa mo na kung anong diskarte. But if you are not yet, or you are not a lawyer, the blunt curiosity is there. And of course, the neutrality when it comes to deciding on motions and questions will also be reinforced. But of course, this is just wishful thinking. It is still up to the Senate who they think will be the best presiding officer.
Well, the impeachment trial is set to begin on July 6, Attorney. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think will be the most critical issue that the senator judges will have to weigh on? And let's get your fearless forecast. What do you think this impeachment trial will come down to? Will it result in a conviction or an acquittal of Vice President Sara Duterte?
I think with respect to the 4 articles of impeachment, the strongest grounds which the prosecution can bank on are the arguments or allegations, rather, as to the graft and corruption and malversation of public funds. Because the Constitution is quite clear po, no? Public office is public trust, right? So if a vice president or an impeachable official, for that matter, truly committed these crimes against, the public funds, then he or she must be removed from office. And also the threat. The threat, the video we all watched, right, and witnessed, threatening to cause death to the highest ranking official of the executive department and his spouse and the House Speaker that time. That can also be considered as other high crimes and betrayal of public trust, which are grounds to remove an impeachable official from office. As to my fearless forecast, before actually, we've talked about this before, it was quite impossible already to convict her because, you know, the majority bloc before, or the majority of the senators, truly, you can glean or you can observe from their political affiliations or even explicit statements in the media that they want to acquit VP Duterte. But just a few weeks ago, you know, these past days, nagkakaroon ng pag-asa yung mga for conviction naman. So if 16 will be the threshold for conviction, fearless forecast, there's a great possibility that she will be removed from office.
Well, last question, attorney. Of course, we are looking at possible scenarios here. Of course, the trial will be on July 6. But what if, in the middle of the trial, the vice president resigns? What will happen? Should the impeachment court pursue the trial, push through with the trial, or stop?
Of course, they must continue with the trial, right? Resignation must not be weaponized to evade accountability. Hindi naman natin ginagawa itong impeachment trial para i-convict lamang siya. There are two choices, for conviction and for acquittal. Pwede pa rin siyang ma-acquit. But even if she resigns, tatandaan po natin that one of the penalties of impeachment is not just removal from office, but perpetual absolute disqualification to hold any public office under the Republic of the Philippines. So dapat desisyonan pa rin yan ng mga senador kung si VP Duterte ba ay pwede pa rin maging public servant in the future. So resignation does not make the impeachment trial moot and academic.
Ayun.
All right. Well, for now, we're going to have to wait and see what will happen in this impeachment trial. But thank you very much for your time and for sharing your insights with us. We learned a lot from Attorney Jen today.
Always.
Naingit ako sa mga students niya. Parang gusto ko na rin mag-enroll sa klase ni Attorney Jen.
Attend na tayo.
Thank you very much, Attorney Jen Reyes. Again, that was Attorney Jennifer Reyes, constitutional law book author and professor.
Thank you.
Okay. Don't go away. Morning Matters will be back after this short break. Keep it here.
Good morning. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News.
The Justice Department says it has not received any official communication from the International Criminal Court, or ICC, on the alleged arrest warrant against Senator Bongo. Here's that report.
The International Criminal Court is allegedly set to order the arrest of another close ally of former President Rodrigo Duterte. This time, his former aide, Senator Bongo. The information supposedly came from a reliable source of Duterte's son, Davao City Representative Paulo Duterte. In a social media post, Duterte claimed that the ICC arrest warrants against Senator Go and 2 former police officers have already been issued. Go is among those named by the ICC as a co-perpetrator in the Crimes Against Humanity case against former President Duterte in connection with his bloody drug war. Also named as co-perpetrators were former police chiefs Vicente Danao and Oscar Albayalde. But authorities say they have yet to receive any confirmation on the supposed arrest warrant. Interior Secretary John Vic Remulla even hit back at Congressman Duterte for spreading the claim.
Wala pa ako nakita. Baka sabog siya nung narinig siya kasi wala pa kami nakikitang ganun eh. So wala, hindi namin alam. Siya lang nakakita nun. Sa amin wala pa eh.
Sabi niya highly reliable source.
Baka high lang.
Even PNP Chief Jose Melencio Nartates shrugged off the congressman's claim.
So meron daw highly reliable source si Polong na about po doon sa ICC warrant.
Buti pa siya alam niya. Ako hindi ko alam.
Former Senator Antonio Trillanes also said the public should not believe Congressman Duterte, saying no new ICC warrant has been issued. Trillanes added that even if a warrant does not come out soon, Duterte would not know about it, just as his father supposedly did not know before he was brought to The Hague. The Department of Justice also said it has not received any official communication from the ICC. The DOJ said this was verified with the Philippine Center on Transnational Crime. In the case of Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa, the ICC issued a warrant against him on November 6, 2025. But the warrant remained sealed for 6 months and was only made public on May 11. Meanwhile, Senate President Win Gatchalian said he has also not received any confirmation on the supposed warrant against Go. But is he ready to place Go under protective custody?
It's very difficult to preempt. No? Let's wait kung totoo nga yung information na yun. The situations vary.
Despite the rumors of an arrest warrant, Senator Go has issued a statement. Go said he is leaving everything to God. He said that in his entire life, he has not violated any law of man or law of God. Go added that police operations were never part of his mandate. He hopes and prays that the supposed ICC warrant against him will not be tainted by politics.
8 Ateneo basketball players appeared at the PNP CIDG headquarters as part of the ongoing investigation into the deaths of student athletes Rene Baterbonia and Divine Adili. Interior Secretary John Vic Remulla said the recommendation on possible charges will be submitted to the Department of Justice on Tuesday. PNP Chief General Jose Melencio Nartates noted that the number of possible respondents and charges has yet to be finalized as investigators continue to examine all angles, including possible violations of the anti-hazing law. Authorities added that the probe is now 99% complete and may be finalized by Monday, pending remaining testimonies.
But the report is not complete. Bukas yung mga coaches ang sampina nila. And then we should, siguro mga Martes, dadalhin na namin sa DOJ ang full report namin. Basta may namatay, may liability lagi yan. Pero kung para masabi ko sino liable, hindi ko pa masabi ngayon.
Ballet Manila is making history with the country's first full-length production of Paquita. The classical ballet, reimagined by Lisa Macuja Elizalde, opens at the Aliw Theater this weekend. Mobile Journal Denise Valdesancho has the report.
Ballet Manila is making history with the Philippines' first ever full-length production of Paquita, a classical ballet reimagined by Lisa Macuja Elizalde. The production tells the story of a young gypsy woman who discovers her noble roots and finds love along the way. While Paquita has long been known for its iconic grandpa, this version features a full storyline created by Lisa Macuja Elizalde herself.
Paquita, it's the story of a gypsy
girl who thought she was a gypsy girl, but apparently she was of noble birth. And then she falls in love with a French military officer, Lucien. And then at the end, they find out that Paquita is of noble birth, so they can't get married. So it's a happy ending.
The production marks a major milestone not just for Ballet Manila, but for Philippine ballet as a whole, as highlighted by Lisa. After retiring from active performance a decade ago, she remains deeply involved in the creative process, guiding the next generation of dancers while continuing to push the art form forward.
Well, personally, it's the first time the full-length ballet Paquita is going to be performed in the Philippines. So it's historic, and at the same time, I'm really happy that it's a version that I created that is classical ballet, keeping all the Marius Petipa divertissement as is, and then creating the story around it.
The production stars 2 alternating lead pairs, including principal dancers Mark Sumailo and Abigail Olivero. Lisa says the local ballet scene has never been more diverse, with more companies, productions, and talent than ever before. But she notes that keeping the art accessible remains a challenge.
For the future of ballet, I would like to basically see a lot more government support, a lot more private sponsorships and subsidies, a lot more endowment maybe from the art patrons, and a lot more outreach. That I hope that we can reach the students. I hope that we can reach provincial audiences.
Paquita opens its historic run at the Aliu Theater in Pasay City on June 19 at 8 p.m., followed by performances on June 20 and 21 at 5 p.m. As Ballet Manila brings a classical masterpiece to the Philippine stage, Lisa is inviting more Filipinos to experience the magic of live ballet.
I'd like to invite everybody to come to Aliu Theater. It's this weekend only. That's June 18, 19, 20, and 21. We have 4 performances of Paquita. It's the world premiere of my full-length ballet.
Mobile journalist Denise Valdesancho, We are One News.
Stay tuned. Morning Matters returns after a quick break.
Good morning, I'm Cheska Liton-Calao. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. JCI Manila is rolling out a community development initiative aimed at strengthening livelihood opportunities for mothers in Baseco through sewing and skills training. The program, called Threads of Life, provides participants with technical training, equipment, and resources to help them produce and sell sewing-based products. It also includes efforts to rehabilitate their community center into a more sustainable livelihood hub. Aside from skills development, the initiative focuses on improving market access by linking participants with potential buyers, partners, and sales channels to support income generation. For more on this initiative, we are joined by Bugsy Ancheta, Chairman of Threads of Life, and David Ramos, 2026 Director for Community Development of JCI Manila. Good morning, and thank you for joining us here on Morning Matters.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. You're coming from Pampanga. Thank you for making the trip.
Yes.
Let's start from the very beginning, as they say in the movie. It's a very good place to start. How did Threads of Life project start, and what inspired JCI Manila to launch this initiative?
All right. So when we were planning the project, we're looking for a good community that we could do a livelihood program. So it was suggested to us by Director David that we do it in Baseco, Manila. Then researching about the community, we found out that the community really needs this support when it comes to the average income of each household. So that's when we had the motivation to do it there. So together with the group mates, we came up with a very sustainable livelihood program for them through teaching the mothers how to sew. So.
What was it about Baseco that inspired you to focus on that area?
Yes, actually, Baseco, as many know, that it is one of the marginalized sector in Manila City. And I'll tell you a quick story. When we did the project opening last April, and all of the 100 women were there gathered to witness what's gonna happen for the whole program of the Threads of Life. And I asked one mother, like, what interested you to join this? And she was telling the story na, the common livelihood here is we get one sack of garlic, we peel that for a whole day, and we earn 100 pesos. Yes, and that really struck me in terms of, the impact. And basically, it's more of how we can provide sustainability, or sustainable program rather, to the whole community of the chosen community that we are partnering. No? So we saw the life that's being, that's happening right there. And the big question mark here is, if we leave after JCI Manila does this project, what would be the impact? Is it just they know the knowledge, or they know the knowledge and they can implement it somewhere else, right? So.
Okay, so the specific needs in the community that you saw, what were these specific needs that you aim to address through Threads of Life?
Mm-hmm. So a lot of women in Baseco, Manila are unemployed. Most of them are, husbands are working in construction or working elsewhere. And we want to provide opportunity for women who are also watching their kids at home, right? Na, some of them are going to public school, and then while their kids are in public school, they don't have anything to do rather than just peel garlic or whatever, laundry, so on and so forth. So we want to fill that gap of giving them something that's not just, taking some time while they're, waiting for the kids, but also an opportunity for them to earn good money, not just earn for the sake of earning, right? So yeah, that's the gap that we're filling.
The saying, teach a man to fish, you feed him.
Exactly.
Give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime.
Yes.
In terms of the skills and the knowledge that you're imparting, what exactly are they learning from Threads of Life?
So we conducted a 40-hour training program for the women of Baseco. Basically, at the end of the program, we expect them to know how to sew bags, pillowcases, and even curtains. All right. So we decided to be like that, so that even after the training, they can use that skill set to maybe do some projects outside for extra income for their household. So that's basically the program.
Mm-hmm.
I think you brought a sample.
Yes, we
of
did.
the bag.
So,
this is the dust bag, yes?
yes, it's a dust bag that we did for a partner of ours. So, aside from the training program, we did market entry for them, in which we partnered with different organizations that would support the produce of the beneficiary. So this is an actual sample of it. So it's a dust bag from a partner of ours. So they'll be doing 1,000 units of this bag. Yeah.
And then there are ready customers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so how did you find people and companies already ready and willing to partner?
Yeah. So Threads of Life is really a collaboration of different individuals and different organizations. And the team has been really intentional in finding it to make the program really more sustainable. So, of course, through the help of the people in JCI Manila, we were able to partner with several companies already to support the project.
How many? It's all women, no? So how many beneficiaries, and who was your target? Who were your target beneficiaries, mainly?
Alright. So the priority is mainly the mothers of Baseco Manila in different age brackets. So we have young mothers, we have even moms aging 65 and above. Some of them have been retired already and have been focusing on taking care of the kids, and it's really, we're really happy to give them the opportunity to somehow find something that could be productive for them through this project. So,
Yeah.
Could you take us through from training? I think you also provide them with equipment. There's a
Yes.
sewing starter kit. Well, can you tell us about this?
yes. So aside from the 40-hour training program that we conducted with them, again, it was made possible through a partner of ours. So they provided the training program with us. Then after that, through the coordination with the local government of Baseco Manila, we were able to find a space that would be the official center for the Threads of Life. And there, it's housing the 20 sewing machines that, Threads of Life, JCI Manila, through the collaborations with the different organizations, we were able to donate 20 sewing machines.
The 40-hour training is spread out over how many days?
Oh, it was spread in almost 2 months.
Oh,
so
okay.
we ran it in 4 batches.
Okay.
So around 20 to 25 each batch.
And then how was the response from the women? Because again, if it was over 2 months, like did they go every single time? Were they perfect attendance or?
That's a good
question. Yeah. Well, I was surprised because the first 2 legs we transported them from Baseco to Palanan, Makati.
Oh.
Because during that time, we were still renovating the site in Baseco, Manila.
Mm-hmm.
So we were expecting a good fallout during those batches. But surprisingly, we had 100% attendance for those batches. So the beneficiaries were really responsive and were really excited about the training.
Yeah.
And then how did you find the teachers?
Teachers.
The people who would impart their skills and teach the women of Baseco how to use the equipment.
All right. We actually found them really casual. We found them online.
Oh.
Yeah, it was that casual. We were screening through different possible training partners, and after we found their details, we called them, then casually, proposed to them about what's gonna happen for the whole program, and they said yes. And the next thing we know, we finished the 4 batches. And for me, the teachers were really instrumental. Aside from teaching them how to sew, aside from giving them that skill set, it taught them, concern for their community. Just a quick story. When we were renovating the the center. It was really bayanihan, not only for the team, not only for our organization, but also for the graduates of the previous batches. Because it was the Filipino spirit for me, the so-called bayanihan. That's what the Mothers of Baseco did for us to clean and renovate the official center for this program.
Oh, wow. So in terms of the sewing start, what is part of the sewing starter kit? And you also sponsor initial raw materials. Could you explain that?
Actually, for the starter kit, right? As you can see, the whole program is very holistic. From training, from providing a livelihood center, and at the same time, market access and also employment. Just to share that, without naming the famous clothing brand here, they expressed their interest to employ some of our graduates. So it's a really holistic livelihood program that we made for the women of Baseco. Now, aside from that, it's more of giving them the starter kit so that they can have, working materials for some of the small orders that they're gonna get. And then also together with that would be the 20 sewing machines that we've donated. So yes, there are already purchase orders that we got for the community. So obviously there will be some down payments so that they can, purchase the raw materials to produce the demand for that. And basically everyone is very excited, Everyone is very excited, and tomorrow we will be officially turning over the Livelihood Center and have the graduation of the 100 women that that finished successfully the whole program. And we're gonna have a motorcade in Baseco, Manila, from the basketball court where we're gonna do the graduation, going to the Livelihood Center that we rehabilitated. Yeah.
My motorcade.
Yes.
Oh, that's nice. I'm sure the mothers will be so excited. And in terms, so there's training, there's providing the equipment, there's the market access. But let's talk about how will you sustain this for future batches?
Yes. So the official Livelihood Center is going to be maintained by the City of Manila, right? And then it's more of the group will be monitoring, how the whole business operation is, and making sure that there's still a guidance before we officially leave, the whole group for Threads of Life. And that's how we do it in all of the community development projects, specifically to livelihood in JCI Manila. So we don't just teach them, leave them, and then after that, where are the equipments, where are the women or the beneficiaries that we taught the certain skills. So it's really more of the guiding them step by step, gradually leaving them and making sure that they can stand on their own.
While you're speaking, David, I know you also just came from a different project.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that also?
So we're also, under JCI Manila's Community Development Project, we do a lot of programs such as public health, livelihood, education, youth development, elderly, which is the project that I went from Pampanga, and then so on and so forth, right? So the project that I came from is actually a cataract surgery for the women, for the elderly in Pampanga. So it is also free. So after the screening that we did for the elderly, and then after some of the findings, we scheduled them per batch for a free cataract surgery. So I think in total we were able to we're scheduled to operate 130 plus elderly for a free cataract surgery. So that's why I went to Pampanga to do a couple of documentations and to visit also some of the beneficiaries that we've helped.
You guys are doing so many projects to help communities. Syempre, with this comes funding.
Yes.
How are people supporting? How can they donate? How can people get involved in this?
Right. So just for context of who JCI Manila is, right? So JCI Manila is a leadership development organization. So we're from ages 18 to 40 years old. Right, so we've been around, and we are the first in Asia as a JCI chapter, and we've been around for 78 years. Right, so ever since most of our projects, since we are a non-profit organization, most of our projects are really funded. We do fundraising. So we pitch to a company, we pitch to companies who has CSR, and those who are also aligned with the advocacy. So if anyone is interested to, support not just the projects that we do, and every year we do about 400 projects, and most of it are really focused on community projects. So if anyone is interested, you can visit our Facebook page. It's JCI Manila. Again, it's JCI Manila on Facebook, and you can also visit our website. It's jcimanila.org. So for those who are interested to, see what are the things that we do from community, from national, international, and membership, that's where you can reach us out.
Are there any other projects in the works or any ideas that you guys are, talking about, trying to figure out if you can get this off the ground?
Yes, actually, we have another livelihood project which is called Urban Ani. It's an urban farming in Smoky Mountain. So there's this abandoned establishment in Smoky Mountain, and at the rooftop, the women also in Smoky Mountain are planting, and for mushrooms. So what we did is we trained them in TESDA, teach them the hydroponics technicalities, and then while they're training there, and we provided housing also for the women in Smoky Mountain. It's also being rehabilitated simultaneously. So on June 25, we're gonna turn it over. When the community or the women in Smoky Mountain goes there, they will be shocked that they can accommodate more products. There's gonna be new set of product for hydroponics, and they can employ from 14, they can employ now 50 for the community, affecting more of the livelihood. So that's more of the livelihood setup. And for the public health, we're doing one of our biggest public health project. It's called Care for Life. Basically, the objective of Care for Life is for pediatric and adult patients who are battling cancer. So we're providing, it's more of the preventive for the benign and for the malignant. For the preventive, the people in the marginalized community, the usual behavior is if I'm feeling something, I don't want to go to the doctor because I'm afraid if I'm going to figure out something's wrong with me. But this is more of the preventive, and if we can, like simple tumor operation, we do that for free. We partner with a health institution. For the benign and malignant and for even chemotherapy, we also sponsor that. That's for Care for Life under our major public health program.
All right, before we let you go, maybe you have a message to everyone, a last statement from each of you, Sir Bugsy and Sir David.
All right. Well, JCI Manila is just one of the organizations or group of individuals who are contributing to the heaven here on earth by contributing to different communities. And through this project, Threads of Life, may it spark a deeper sense of hope for our fellow Filipinos, especially in this chaotic and trying time for the country. So,
yeah. Well, with the leadership of our very visionary President Edison Ke, who is our president for 2026 in JCI Manila, the focus really here is be an avenue of bridging the gap of whatever can be done with the energy that we have as young fellow men of this country, and JCI Manila has been working hard for the past 78 years. You imagine from the time after 2 years after World War II, here in Manila, and 78 years after, we're still doing community project, which is the heart of our chapter, JCI Manila. So we hope that this sends a message also for some of the civic organizations and some of, every individual, that we can do our part in our country in providing assistance and giving, support to those people who are in need, because, service to humanity is the best work of life.
Thank you for your time, Bugsy Ancheta, Chairman of Threads of Life, and David Ramos, 2026 Director for Community Development of JCI Manila. Don't go away. Morning Matters will be back after a short break.
Good morning mga kapatid. You're still watching Morning Matters.
All right, that's it for today's news. But of course, before we go, we're going to talk about our key takeaways from today's stories.
From Attorney Jen. Wait, no, I want to hear what you guys talked about with Attorney Jen.
Yeah, well, it's so nice to finally meet Attorney Jen because we've been always talking to her, but always through Zoom. But finally, naka-visit siya sa atin dito sa studio. But we talked about more about the impeachment, the pre-trial, the importance, and of course, all the things, di ba, na dapat malaman natin about impeachment because this is going to be one of the biggest event here in the political event in the Philippines. Can you imagine a vice president impeached twice, diba, in our political history? So a lot of people are going to be, watching.
What I found interesting from our interview with Attorney Jen is that she believes it would be prudent to still base the threshold for conviction at 16. She says right now it might be prudent for the senators to just follow the Constitution, which is 2/3 of all members of the Senate. But eventually, of course, questions might still come up regarding that. And her fearless forecast in the impeachment trial is that there's a good chance that the vice president might be removed from office because of the realignments happening in the Senate. Right before, we knew that the Duterte bloc was the majority already, but because of the recent shakeup, well, who knows what will happen? And that's her fearless forecast. Baka magkaroon ng conviction.
Yeah, so as right before the break, I got to speak with Sir Bugsy and Sir David of JCI Manila, and they're doing wonderful things in the community of Baseco, Manila. The women have been, given skills. As I said nga earlier, teach a man, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. So these women are being given valuable life skills. They're being taught to sew bags, meron dust bags, pillowcases, and tote bags, I think.
Wow.
And then there's already, there are companies that are ready and willing to buy these products. And yung graduation nila, may motorcade sila.
Wow. Bongga.
Oh, may motorcade ka ba nung nag-ala ako? Wala akong motorcade.
Pwede bang aral ulit tayo?
Alright.
Really
okay,
great.
so happy weekend. Enjoy your weekend. That wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro.
We hope we've given you just the right start to your morning. I'm Cheska Liton Calao.
Let's make the day matter. I'm Pauline Verzosa, and we'll see you again on Monday.
Kapatid, we're one you.
All sides,
all the time.